Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Jeff's not here today, so I welcome everybody. Let's 6:30. Let's stand for. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you get the copy of the minutes? Agenda?
I read them, I like them.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Tonight's agenda.
Seconded by now. All in favor? Opposed? We'll go over them. Then before. Make a motion to adopt tonight's minutes from the report.
Yes, I would make a motion to approve next minutes.
Second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? And Joel, I know you had a busy day putting out fires and doing popular lately. Road work. I know.
So, we had to change a couple of culverts. We had to change a culvert on Lennox Road that was failed pretty badly. And then we had to change a culvert on Devonis Quarry Road. After we did the work on the Lennox Road culvert, we did a little bit more road improvement while we were right there and had all the equipment there. Get the road kind of under control before winter. And then the next, once we got done with that, we mobilized right over to the Bonus Quarry Road and dealt with a culvert that had failed over there. We already had the permit from DEC because it was definitely going to fail if we left it for the winter. So from there on, the guys have been blowing leaves off the shoulders of the roads and out of the ditch to clear them from obstructions. I realize I'm hearing a lot of people don't understand why we blow leaves off the road or go around with a giant blower and do that. It accomplishes a few things really. If we ran the grader, if we were going to grade a road and it had a bunch of leaves in it, there's a bunch of bits on the blade of the grader. It's not a flat blade. We have a flat blade, but that only goes on for winter. We use a bit blade for tearing up the roads because they're carbide teeth and they actually last a while. If we leave the leaves on the road and do that, then all the leaves will pile up and they will make an absolute mess. So it would be so counterproductive to, accomplishing a nicely graded road if we were to do that. Getting the leaves off the shoulder, actually, it's like removing insulation from the wall so that the shoulder can freeze up good and the wings don't tear up the road as much in the winter. And then the third goal is blowing as many leaves out of ditch lines as we can so that the ditch works the way it's supposed to with minimal restriction and the water flow continues to go through and culverts don't get plugged up with leaves and then we're not out spraying on a 12 below day in the middle of winter. I know we did recently get a new guy, so he's been going around and learning why we do some of our practices and stuff. I heard from a few concerned people who were wondering why two people were doing that, and that's the reason why, because everybody has to learn somewhere. It's better to learn by understanding and seeing it firsthand than to just get thrown in and told to go do something that you don't even understand. So that's why I do that. After that, after we've been done with blowing the leaves off and doing that, grading in those culverts, we've basically just been prepping trucks for snowfall or whatever we get that comes our way. We still have a truck at HP Fairfield in Hopkinton, New Hampshire that should be back, and I'm hoping it'll be ready tomorrow. I'm basically told no later than Wednesday. That's one of the salt trucks. So we're patiently waiting to get that truck back and be fully operational. We had to have some last minute work done on the 2012 Dodge. The engine was going into shutdown mode. We had less than 200 miles before we would have been completely locked out of the truck. So they had to do some last minute needed repairs on that to buy us time. That truck does have a slipping transmission, or we did just have the wiring harness from the transmission done a couple of years ago, and they told us that the underside was looking pretty rough. Like I said, truck's a 2012 and its sole purpose in winter is salt. So it's approaching the end of its life, and it's getting to that point where it's not really that reliable. I think we can nurse it through this winter, but I strongly would encourage the board to consider replacing that truck in the very near future, as we don't really have a backup vehicle. If something does go down out of our fleet, we basically need them all.
Is that
Like
the small truck?
It is. That's a Dodge 5500 or a Ram 5500, and it just does the asphalt roads. So that's back up and running for the time. The sanders in it, everything's good to go. And now we're working on the tandems, just getting them chains on, sanders in, final adjustments, checking everything over, checking oil in our bed chains and all that kind of stuff. Just as much preparation as we can. And Sarah's been helping me with a little MRGP computer work and reporting. And today we got our boom mower back from some repairs, was sent out for repairs at United Ag and Turf in Springfield, Vermont. And on the way back, the hauling company that moved it for us, it was not a town entity or any of our employees, had an incident at the Castleton not the Castleton Four Corners, but the Route 4 overpass. And the boom mower struck the bridge and destroyed the boom, and it's smashed the cab of the tractor. They do have cargo insurance, which is what it's called when you put something on a trailer. Police report's been taken care of. So we're just kind of sorting out through insurance and whatever legal processes that has to go through. It is currently out back of our garage in our possession. We were able to drive it back here the rest of the way from there, but it's completely inoperable at this time. And I'm not sure if it'll be fixable or what the status, what they'll say.
That's when that we brought this home.
Unfortunately, yes.
The boom was out. It wasn't.
The boom, I could see when I got there, I could see that they had chained everything. So what happened, how he made it that far in a 2-hour drive without having any previous incidents, I can't tell you. I honestly, between myself, the truck driver, and the owner of the company and the Castleton police chief, everybody's just kind of confused as to what led up to that happening, because it does look like it was properly secured to. And if it had been any less secured to it, the whole thing would have been off the trailer. So how that went wrong, I don't know. It was well within the clearance range.
Do you have insurance for that?
They do.
They were trailing it. If you're
Umbrella?
Yeah.
correct, if you were any passenger vehicle that goes over the road, whether you're towing a trailer or any sort of load that you have on your vehicle, whether it's a car, truck, trailer, tractor trailer, dump truck, anything like that, anything that you're towing or moving, you are completely responsible. The driver of the vehicle is completely responsible for it. Same goes for hauling heavy equipment on a tractor trailer.
Does that mean we'll
The
get a
driver.
number very similar to the payment that we have, or
I-
we have to get it?
I can't answer anything further than what I can tell you right now. That's all I know. I'm kind of struggling too. Other than that, say we're in pretty decent shape and the only the pump as best we can.
That's not good.
Any questions for Joel?
So do you have John Deere come look at it now, or?
I'm assuming John Deere will come and they'll assess the tractor portion of it. And then probably an Alamo dealer for the actual boom and mowing attachment portion of it. I would imagine it's gonna take multiple assessors to come out and look at their different things. Like I said, they couldn't drive it the rest of the way because it was all over the trailer, the boom was, and it was way over the 13.6 height limit especially afterwards. So we just had to nurse it down Route 30 back to town property. Yeah, the owner of the trucking company drove it back.
So what kind of repairs did the tractor need?
It needed a new turbo. Right. Which, if we were doing in Douglas Equipment, who we bought the boom mower from, actually I reached out to them and they helped us out with the repair. They split the repair bill on that with us as well. So they made good on their end. And let's just hope that everything comes out well with the insurance end of this. So
At least it's winter time, it's not spring, but still. we're
Yeah.
a bit of time, get it fixed,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Good, thank you, crew, I'm sure you're ready for winter.
absolutely.
All right, community development, Sarah.
Okay, so since the last meeting, the town of Poultney hosted the Poultney Energy Fair. Mary, Sue, and Jonathan and the Planning Commission helped organize that. It went really well by all accounts. We had a pretty good turnout. I think there was probably about 40 people that came, 24 people registered, and we had booths from Green Mountain Power and Efficiency Vermont and some giveaways. And then the food trucks were powered by a solar trailer that was brought down by Solarfest and put in the parking lot. They had a couple of mast lights for the event, and then Alderman's brought a few electric vehicles for display. So that was funded through the mini MERP grant that we got from Buildings and General Services back in March. That grant was $4,000, and we still have about half of that to have a follow-on event or use those funds for some other type of community workshop or efficiency work probably in the spring. So we're sending out a few thank you notes and just wrapping that up, that first part of it. Jonathan and Mary Sue are here, so I don't know if either of you have anything that you want to add, or
you had thanked Joel at the meeting, but also just an extra thanks to Joel and the room crew for bringing the trailer down and involving the rest of the town. I think that's a great pathway forward for these events to like get all the different areas. I know that the guy from the Makerspace came over and talked about making his resources available, and so it just sparked really good communication. But Sarah carried the lion's share of the organization and the follow-up and all the other stuff. She deserves the majority of the credit as far as I'm concerned.
And I just have to say, I talked to many of the folks that showed up, and there's quite a bit of enthusiasm and questions. And the two representatives we had, one from Green Mountain Power and one from excuse me, Efficiency Vermont, were really good because they were able to personalize answers for individuals' issues with their homes, whatever. So we got some really good feedback from people. It was nice.
That's good. Well, I heard good things about it. You know, the chamber is thinking about doing a business kind of fair type of thing. Maybe we should talk to you about it and something they could come, so we can do something together a little bigger.
Yeah.
In the future.
That's great. Yeah, we had, the senior center was great and, it was, you know, one of the only venues that we have available for that type of thing. So it's really great that, it's available and, Carrie was great and regional planning. So, that will be coming back around again. And then as far as grant updates, I have bad news and good news. So I'll give you the bad news first. The application to the Vermont Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for the generators is not going to be forwarded to an application phase. So those 3 generators, which were implementation of the town's emergency management plan, for a generator at the senior center, the elementary school, and the high school, aren't moving on to the next round. The reason for that is because the program had an unprecedented volume of pre-applications that they received, and they prioritized the project types, the following 3 project types: buyouts, floodplain restoration project, and high impact infrastructure projects. So although we won't be getting the funding for the generators, we have the estimates and there are other places to look, so we can continue looking. And then we do have one outstanding pre-application, which is for the BRIC project, which is the first thing under Paul's report. So that is progressing. So that's the bad news. The good news is that we heard from Buildings and General Services about the MERP awards, and Poultney, the town of Poultney, was awarded the full award for the MERP awards. So that's pretty amazing. There were 126 awards from 200 municipal applications. We got the max, which is $500,000.
Wow, nice. Good job, Sarah.
Good news. All right. So we have 4 buildings. You probably remember that the town office, the town garage, the senior center, and Stonebridge were the 4 buildings that were assessed for that program for the town. And we have materials that need to be signed very quickly. Actually, they need to be returned back to Buildings and General Services by December 16th. So I printed them out to bring to the select board tonight. Basically, there is a scope of work for each of the 4 buildings in there. And the way the application went was that we prioritized thermal envelope in each of the buildings and energy efficiency improvements as a secondary. So we followed the criteria of the program. And Jeremy at the RPC is the one who actually submitted this for us. Paul and I both helped him to prioritize the projects that were recommended by the consultants. Jeremy is highly encouraging the select boards. There were several other municipalities in Rutland County, but highly encouraging the boards to sign the documentation and return it to BGS by the December 16th. If we don't do that, we will lose the funds. And if we need to revisit the scope of work and make tweaks to specific buildings or things change within them, we can start to request amendments after the first of the year. So that's kind of the gist of it. I don't know if anyone has any questions at this time about the program, but
Would you make a motion to sign those?
Yeah.
so we just have I tagged everything that we need to review. We just need Paul's signature. One of the things that I do think that we'll be talking about in the coming year are the soft costs, the project management of all of these projects that are happening at 4 different buildings. So we have at least 20, Jeremy told me today, approximately 30% of the award can be used for soft costs. So there's that. There's some ADA compliance that can be used in these grants as well. So, you know, if some of the projects, the buildings need to have ADA be ADA accessible. So, how that kind of shakes down will be a little bit further developed in the beginning of the year, but there is money for project management. And we have the contract with BGS and an affirmation of the use of funds, which is essentially us accepting the award and saying that we will follow the rules for reporting.
So all 4 buildings have to be worked on.
All 4 buildings, yes,
To get the maximum reward.
yes, they were all reviewed. It was about,
Yeah.
it was probably last winter, I think, that they came out and did the review of those. So there were recommendations for each of the buildings.
There's someone want to make a
Motion.
motion to
I would make,
sign?
is a motion to sign the Merck is awards.
For me to sign it?
Yes. Or do we need to all sign it or just Paul?
Paul needs to sign the contract.
Okay, yes, to have Paul.
Second, anybody second it? And Val second. Good job, Sarah.
Well, a lot of credit goes to the regional planning and everyone that helped with the assessments as well.
Yeah, Paul.
Yes, and Paul helped me organize so much of this. There was an award for the village separately, so that's pretty exciting. I think that's the big news on the grants for right now.
Any questions for Sarah? Thanks for all you're doing.
Yes,
Thank you.
getting there.
Buildings.
Take time.
Paul.
Let me just sign this one. Got it in front of me.
Now, you said that you have more good news.
That wasn't
That
enough
was it.
good news.
That was it.
There's a lot of signing. 4 building signing. There's a lot of.
Okay, so, I don't have this on the agenda, but, Linda Smith from the, GRSCU had asked to be put on the agenda so she could address the board and members of the public about some stuff going on at the board.
And I'm not asking for anything except for listening. I have been on the board again for a year and a half. It became pretty clear after a while that and I'm doing this, I'm going to start doing some things at the library. I just went and talked to Rebecca about asking and talking about budget because it's really clear when so many things are happening at GRCSU. We are part of Clory Valley. We have 1 vote out of 10 votes, and we have not a lot of voice on it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of education. It's people don't come to the boards, you know that as well as I do. Though I would give anything to have that at a board meeting. So I'm going to do a little education because I've had people actually don't understand that there are 2 budgets that they're actually voting for, and they're voting for administration, special education, and teachers on the GRCSU. So we don't have, like I said, 1 vote. We have the most kids, and we have 1 vote. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go on Clory Valley. And again, we have the most kids. We pay, Clory Valley pays almost 60%. I think we pay 29% of the vote. So again, Poultney pays the most. So I'm going to be showing the people because at this point, I ask a lot of questions constantly, and my perception, my truth is people don't like on the board that you ask questions. Okay, so it's been kind of an interesting, and Mary Jo certainly knows about that, how that goes. And then if you start digging around, you start I only got 1 more. So I've discovered along the way that, you know, when my daughter and I were on the board together, I called the state and said, can that happen? And when we went on it, we were very transparent about it. Rutland Town Board member is married to the principal of Proctor High School. It's never been brought up. I'm not questioning the man's integrity. What I'm questioning is that there's no transparency. And that keeps coming back to haunt us. And I sent a letter to, and this is part of the letter I sent to the 3 chairs and to the superintendent. And basically we had a wonderful conversation where they said they didn't have any problem with it. And I said, it would have been nice if all the people on the board could have had that opportunity to also say they didn't have a problem with it. Because when you do something like that and you don't make it transparent, then you start asking what else isn't transparent. Okay, so in 2023-24, Joe had 1 science teacher and he had 281 kids. Proctor had 121 kids and 3 science teachers. In July of 2023, I went to the superintendent and I said, "You're aware of this?" Okay, so we're not supposed to be aware of it because he's the CEO and he's supposed to do it. But you start going into your schools and you start asking questions and you start realizing, and we didn't get it. So our kids who graduated in 2024 didn't have the opportunity that Proctor had. All right, another lack of transparency. Why not? He has the ability to make the changes. Of course, we had another person as the chair of the board who is from Proctor. So again, transparency. Students from Wells, Middletown, Rutland Town, they're not obligated to send them to our 3 high schools. There's no obligation whatsoever to do that. Okay.
Well, that's a quick question, because I'm confused too. I thought when it was set up that if Poultney had kids that needed a higher level of chemistry or math or something like that, they were able to take that course from another school. Is that not?
They're able to, but it's,
Want to get them there.
yeah,
It's a matter of someone would have to get in there. So they could go to that school
Right.
versus staying in Poultney
They
if it was
any of the schools in the district.
right. Like if a school had physics,
Or Poultney, but you've got transportation issues.
right?
and now Rutland Town, because I asked her about that, Rutland Town Chair Tina said, well, we don't, if you provide us with a bus from Rutland Town, maybe, again, they'll go to the SU. We won't have any say in the matter of it, the 1 vote. And she said, the districts aren't our responsibility, was one of the things that she said to me. And I'm like, okay, I see what you're talking about, but I'm talking about kids. You're talking bureaucracy. I'm talking kids. And that's where we have to come back to me, is the kids. What was the 5th one I was going to do? Oh, I forgot. Oh, I know what it was. In 2018, when we signed, it said that any board member could come to the GRC issue. They could come and they could talk. They couldn't vote, but they could talk, which means that they could go into any meeting and talk. In 2022, the articles of agreement, I'm not sure if that's the right, there's 2 things. One is the articles of agreement and there's another one. And forgive me for not knowing that one, and I should, because I've been reading it. It changed. We are now members of the public. So our voices now got even farther away from GRC issue. We can come to the meeting, but we can only speak as members of the public. So again, another thing. Well, I was in North Carolina over vacation, and I went on to the board meeting. And again, I was asking questions. Let's talk about the articles of agreement. Let's see if we can change it. Oh, it's a process. It takes a long time. I know it's a process. I know it's legislative. I know that. But to not even have a conversation about it, we can't talk about the process unless we have a conversation to say that we want to do that. All right. And I'm watching more and more in Poultney where the kids are not getting. I mean, I could give you 5 or 6 more things that I can tell you over the past year and a half that's happened where we've been shut down and not getting what we need for Poultney. And the way the statute is that we do pay that. And I don't know if you saw in the paper, but other towns are talking about the statute changing. Maybe the people who have the most kids, all we're asking for is equal representation. We're not saying that because you're a small town, you have no say. We're saying that because you're a small town, you have all the say. So 6 votes from Rutland Town and Wells Springs, 500 kids, and they could shut us down and say, I'm sorry, we don't want to talk about this. So this is interesting. And this is the last piece I'll do. So I was talking and asking about conversation.
Refresh my memory. Wasn't Poultney sort of the black sheep, and they were really desperate to find somebody to join because they tried to join a couple other districts and they weren't accepted?
I think a lot of people are.
The question.
No, we were not black sheep, and we're trying to find the district in that. I can't remember that. And I was there also during this time. You said that Rutland Town was black sheep and trying to get into Barstow and get into Barstow. Doesn't this past? Here's the future of the school for the region.
Okay. So I was so taken aback. I did finish the meeting, but I had to get up and walk out of the room and go back in because but that's the attitude that we get. Okay, there's 3 people from this room. 2 of them, I have no problem. I talk with them. They're great. This is the 3rd guy. He's the guy on GRC issue, Mike Mosher. Okay. So he's the guy that's making the decision about the schools. And this is what he thinks of us. The black sheep. We're the black sheep of Poultney. All right. So we're not good enough. I mean, that's my perception.
That's what he said.
Okay. And I'm thinking again, so this is the reason why I'm getting old and I know that. I'm 74, but I'm really upset that our kids, our grandkids are not getting what they need. One last thing too was that the principal of Proctor made a point, I think it was 2 meetings ago, of saying that they hired a bus to West Rutland to take kids on a history trip. So I said to her, why didn't you ask Poultney? So this time around, I brought it up again. She said it was an AP course. And she turned to Joe, the principal, and said, you don't have AP, though, do you? Okay, now, our kids, just because they're not in an AP class, cannot go to a history class. Oh, I know. She said we only have 1 bus. Well, you don't know how to order a 2nd bus and call. So it's like, and I tried to bring that up and said, you guys from Proctor, Rutland Town, and West Rutland, you had a relationship. We came in and on good faith with you to have a relationship with you 6 years down the road, and we're still fighting for these kids. And that to me is unacceptable. So all I'm doing is saying to you so that people know. I went to the schools and I did this presentation with the teachers because so many things get out of hand. I'm just coming to say, this is what I'm going to be doing. When you hear about it and put it in the paper and I say that I'm doing this kind of a presentation because I'm trying to get the people to say, what do you want us to do? We're 4 people. We're Eric Heyer, Rebecca Gardner, Lauren Davenport, and myself. We're 4 people, but where do you want us? I mean, I know it's like I said, it's statute and legislature. Do you, and maybe as we go along through the months, I'd like to come back and just update you and stuff. But we're really looking, I think, for some direction. I know where I want to go, all right, but I'm Linda. I want to know where the people of Poultney want to go. Where do you want your kids? What do you want for them? And how do we get that for them? because it's time. It's more than time. It's been 6 years. And I don't think, and I go and visit the principals. I mean, I got that from Mary Jo. That's what she taught me. Go into the schools, meet with your principals. A lot of them don't meet with the principals. They come to the board meetings. They never set foot in the school. Well, I do. And we've got 2 good principals, all right, who are very passionate and caring people. And we've been pushing to get more and more teachers that are, but sometimes I wonder, is it because that we're not hearing the things that are going on, that is a good candidate coming, and because we're not offering them enough money? So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I am asking questions, and I'm going to continue to ask them.
Linda, is that something you can do with Joe at the high school for parents and like a whole a meeting place to get
I
parents?
don't want to put him under the microscope. You know what I mean? They have to follow the chain of command, which is, principals go to the superintendent goes to the board. But I'm trying to circumvent in a way to make sure that he can still do his job. And not, I'll still go in, I talk to teachers, what's happening, what do you need? Are you, but you don't want anything to happen to them
Right.
because of what I'm doing. So I thought maybe it's time, instead of asking the people to come to the board meeting when everybody is so busy, maybe it's time to start going to the people and saying, here's what's happening. Here's what I know. Okay, I'm not making this up. These are factual pieces of information.
But do you think it will work for parents to hear this stuff, not just teachers and us?
Oh,
For
definitely.
I'm
Parents.
just thinking, what's the venue to get? You hear parents talk about the budget and how much it costs. I think they need to know the inside scoop that they're not getting.
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking. It needs to be some kind of forum where the parents from elementary and high school are invited for your discussion.
I could do that. We could do it at the high school. We could do it at the elementary school. I've gone to the PTO. They have, and I'll go again and ask them if they would like, because I don't want it to take up a lot of time. This is like step 1. Here's like your basic stuff, guys. All right. Here's what, instead of getting that book that you can't read, I mean, I have a hard, she was great. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm saying I'll start at the beginning and work my way up, because a lot's happening at the state right now. A lot is happening. That new Listen and Learn tour, all the stuff is out on the website now. And that we are going in a different direction. There's no question about it. And I don't know where that's going to go. They just put if you go to the Vermont AOE Listen and Learn tour, there's a whole thing on it. And I'll tell you, it's written at like an 8th grade level. So anybody can read it. That was one of the things that I thought was very good about it, was that it was at a level where everybody could read it. So if you had more questions, you could dig deeper, but at least you got an idea of what was going on. And then I will leave you. I will try to, come back, but please, if you have any questions or concerns or anything, or send them, because I'll ask them at the board meeting. I will.
I'd like to get a copy of those if I can maybe take a picture of it later, the sheets that you have to share. But
why don't you put down your email address? I'll take a picture of it home and I'll send it to you. If anybody wants it, I'll be glad to do it.
I just think as a parent, it's nice to.
I appreciate it.
Thanks
Paul,
That was yours.
Paul, can I just comment real quick on Linda's presentation?
Sure.
Having kind of been through the process and having been on the school board for 16 years when this transition happened, the whole purpose of it was to centralize everything. And what it does is it pulls all the decisions away from the voters, the taxpayers, the parents, and the individual schools. We've always been outnumbered. We've always, if you want to call us the black sheep, call us the black sheep, but we tried working within our supervisory union always. And we've always been, I don't know what the stigma is against Poultney, but we've never had the voice that we need to have. So I think it's really important for Linda to have forums with parents, get taxpayers, put it out there. You know, this is what 80% of our tax bill, 85% of our tax bill for schools. We deserve to get what we are due and what we paid for. So it's important. I mean, I can't stress how important it is. It's a burnout thing, but we've got to keep a lively, active group on the school board. And we've got to get a bigger voice again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
How do
it's
we do
ridiculous.
that?
Well, and that's the next step. Okay, how do we do that? So that's my next step. Once I get this going of December, right now I'm gonna go on and see if I can find somebody to help me to read the statutes to see that. So when I go back for round 2, say in January, I'll say, I'll come back. Okay, here's the statute, because I don't want a lot. People are saturated, we're saturated. So if you could do like little bits, here's this, and do you want, like you asking for it, that's the simplicity of it, to ask to get that little bit done. And then part 2 is what you said, how do we do it? Because do we go independent? Well, how hard that's going to be. Going independent means no help from Vermont, no help from the feds. We may not be getting it anyway, but no help. So that's the next step. What do you want to do? How do we get these people on the board to recognize that we are just as important as, and when we wrote our vision and mission, it's all about the student. So that's how I base myself. I have to keep going back to the kid, to the student. That's the most important thing in the whole world.
I think that's where if you get your parents and your students in, that makes a big impact if they go to the board. I've been to a couple, but if they go to the board, that's, I think, the people you have to get there, because they need to know what's happening in the area. They just see it as a tax bill. I mean, I was to blame. I've had kids in Poultney. You need to get them on board to help support you and back you. I mean, I think that's they want to know, but they don't have any idea. They
don't have any idea.
So,
And
okay.
it's hard for them because.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention, and keep us posted.
Yeah, if anybody knows
Appreciate it.
about the road, anybody in the Rotary, because that's my next thing, is I'd like to go.
There she is.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, do we want to keep
Would
up
you?
with you?
Yes, please.
All
I'm
right,
sorry, Paul.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
There's so much time.
that's okay.
So the next thing we have on our agenda is the BRIC update, which is the Trestle Bridge study, and Evan Fitzgerald and Abby Montrich are here from the engineering firm. I had sent folks a memo that their team put together, and I hope everyone had a chance to review that.
Yeah.
So Evan?
Yes, all right. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having us. I was going to start with a brief introduction of the project just to kind of refamiliarize ourselves and reorient on the objectives. And then I can go over the work that we've done to get to this point where we've got some hydraulic modeling of the Poultney River and floodplain and a list of alternatives that we'd like to evaluate with that modeling. So hopefully I can share my screen fine here. Everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, I wanted to start with a quick little history lesson here. This is a 1962 aerial photo of the D&H rail when it was actually an active rail. And the select board actually pursued this BRIC funding with this historical knowledge that the bridge used to have 2 hydraulic openings. It actually had a pier in the middle, and it was a 2-span bridge. And so when you think about how much area the bridge had for water to flow through, it's basically double what it is today. So you can see here, here's the north abutment. There was a center pier here and south abutment. So where my cursor is here, there was another opening. In 1975, D&H Rail petitioned to the state to turn this into a one opening bridge. They wanted to fill the southern opening. There was quite a bit of back and forth between the town, residents along South Street, and the state. Ultimately, the state allowed them to do this because D&H demonstrated, at least with some satisfaction of the state, that doing this was not going to increase flooding. What's happened, though, and what you have all observed, and the reason we're doing this work, is that with closing off this southern opening here, a lot of additional sediment has deposited in front of this bridge opening. And so I drew one of the paths that the river has taken. You know, here in this photo in the 60s, this was all floodplain, and now the river has actually carved out another channel here. So we sort of have two channels approaching the bridge. So that's just a little bit of history I wanted to go over, because that was important that the select board brought up as part of sort of the purpose of the study. So the town and residents have been experiencing flooding in relation to this bridge for decades, especially as I understand it along the west side of South Street here. And what this map shows is the FEMA mapped floodplain in the darker gray. Here's the D&H rail, here's South Street, here's Granville Road down here. Flow is from right to left. And you can see that split flow here, if I were to zoom in on the opening here. And you can also see that this hatched area, this is what we call the floodway. This is where the fastest flowing water is moving in the 100-year flood. And you can see that it sort of bulges out ahead of the bridge and then bulges just downstream of the bridge. So what that's saying is water is squeezing through this opening in a big flood. And because of that, it's really making the floodplain and the flood inundation extents much wider, because this rail is essentially acting as a dam during a big flood. So with that in mind, what we've done is prepared some modeling, and I don't know how much you've looked through these images that we shared, but we have a few different floods that we've modeled. This would be a 10-year flood, and what these images are showing are both the extents of the floodwaters in anything that's not green, the background kind of aerial photo. So blue, yellow, orange, these are all the extents of the floodwaters. And the darker, the more red and yellows indicate faster flowing water, higher velocity. So you can see the flow comes through South Street here, through the D&H rail, really has to squeeze through that one opening. That's why you see a lot of red here. That's the fastest flowing water. Same thing down here at Granville Street. So this is a 10-year flood. A 50-year flood is basically, as we get bigger floods, we see kind of more angry red colors. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I was getting some background noise. So this is a 50-year flood, and then I'll jump to the 100-year flood. And just
all hail Luggington, free young dog.
Hang in there, everyone. We have a little trouble with our media today.
Okay.
Let's drop Joey from the meeting.
It says use the controller to dismiss. That's all it says on the bottom.
Okay.
Evan,
Yes.
it seems we have someone intent on interrupting the meeting.
Okay.
Already today, so.
Well, I can just keep trying to work through.
Now talking. Glory to the SSB thugs. Free young dog.
I'll show you the simulation here. If you haven't clicked on it, you can click on the link in the file that I shared, and you can actually see.
Now talking. Glory to the SSB thugs. All hands up, Huggington. Free young thug.
I'm afraid we're gonna have to end the meeting.
Okay, very well.